dream. But today, they are here for a different reason. These four students, along with several other school-going children, have moved the Delhi High Court via their parents. They have a simple request: a halt on all outdoor sports trials and tournaments scheduled between the months of November and the months of January of 2026, when pollution levels in the capital are at their peak. Their petition before the Delhi High Court highlights that authorities continue to conduct outdoor sporting events at a time when Delhi's air quality is severe and even hazardous on some occasions, forcing them to perform strenuous physical activities in a highly toxic environment. This, they say, infringes upon their fundamental rights and exposes them to serious health concerns. Their right to life is what they claim is at stake. Now, for the record, Delhi's air quality remains in the severe category today as well, despite third stage of pollution curbing measures remaining in place. So, well, let's take this forward. Let's go across to our very special panel of young students who are flagging concerns. You know, it's become serious. We've all heard anecdotes about how bad the situation in Delhi is. But it really comes to light. There's a different perspective altogether when it's students fighting for their right to life and they have to knock on the doors of the Delhi High Court. Let's go across to our very special panel. Nysa, Shirin, Zoya, Lukshya, thank you so much for being a part of this. It was a long drive after school for you guys here to come to our studios. But Nysa, let's begin with you. Going and knocking on the doors of the Delhi High Court, whose idea was it? Why did you feel compelled that you felt like you had no other option but to actually reach out to the court and say, look, I want my right to breathe, I want my right to live?
So we all came up with this idea collectively because we've been involved in sports for a very long time, since our childhood. So we thought it was important that we play a lot and we are forced to play because the timing is such that we're forced to play in horrible pollution. It's hazardous to our health. So we all felt that we don't have that many years left to play in school at least. So at least for the people, the generation to come, like the situation with the air quality is not improving currently. So I think it's important that at least when we know it's going to happen, every year it does happen. For the past decade, air pollution has been a concern. So I think it's important that we host these tournaments at times that there's less air pollution, so that we're not harmed, our lungs are growing. It can cause like irreversible.
That's such an interesting point that you make, that every year we know it's going to happen. We know that at the time of Diwali, we know that just around the corner, we're expecting terrible AQI figures out of Delhi. It's going to affect us, it's going to affect my lungs, and yet this is something that by sheer planning is something that can be worked around. Shirin, tell me, you, among all your friends, of course, have been going out, trying for zonals, for nationals. When you do go through one of these trials, especially in these toxic weather conditions, the screen right behind you will tell you, give a picture of how things are currently. What does that do to you physically? Have you had personal situations, you or your friends, that you end up coughing, you wheezing, you're not able to breathe properly? Is that something that you happen?
Yeah, so I'd like to share a personal anecdote. Like just maybe a few days back, from the 10th to 14th of November, the interzonal football games were taking place for girls, where Nysa, Zoya and I participated. So we played matches with AQI levels around 500, and the fact was that, like, all of us today here, we have really bad coughs actually, and it's quite evident. It's not only difficult to play, it's not only hazardous for our health, but it also affects our performance. So altogether, I feel like from personal experience, this is a problem that we really faced and we thought it should be highlighted.
That's fantastic. Zoya, coming to you, why did you feel like you had no other options? Have you, as students, raised this concern before your teachers, before your administrators? What did they say in response? Because this is clearly affecting not just you, but on a daily basis also affecting them.
So I think there's two things to your question. Firstly, when we're talking about teachers and administrators in our school specifically, so our school personally has a rule that if the AQI is above 200, no outdoor play happens at all. But obviously, when you're looking at national level tournaments, then that kind of rule isn't mirrored by the government and by the administration of those events, and the school really has no choice because, and Nysa can explain this better to you, but if you don't play in these tournaments, then you're not going to be able to advance to the next stage. So you're essentially wasting a full year of what may be playing at different greater levels of that sport. I think the reason we went specifically to the courts, and there's two things. Mainly because you'll see in the petition as well, there's two respondents, right? There's the government and then there's the SGFI. When you have two different authorities in charge of something, then it's much easier to get them to collaborate and to correspond and to actually change the rules. If you get them in one place in the court, it's much harder to do that, and it's much harder to collaborate if it's where you're writing to them individually. And I also think that, I mean, we read so much about the court doing so much to protect people's fundamental rights, especially the fundamental rights of children. We thought that was the best place to go.
That's fantastic. In fact, the fundamental rights that you've raised is Article 21. That's your very right to live. That's your very right to life. That's the degree of seriousness with which the students here are moving. Delhi High Court raising their concerns. Lukshya, coming to you, you're a long-distance runner. I just want to get a sense, the government appears to be talking in two voices. Is it confusing for you? Because on one hand, you have the health ministry saying that, look, at AQI levels north of 200, let's not go out, let's not exert yourself, no physical activities. On one hand, you also have these trials that are currently underway. Does that get confusing for you? How important, and does that put students in a precarious position? Because like Zoya was pointing out, like Nysa was pointing out, if you miss this critical year, you maybe miss out on a huge opportunity.
So I think then it talks about the basics, right? The right to live, or the right to live in education, or the right to health, which are the rights given in our constitution. And I would like to say it doesn't affect students; it affects everyone. Global issues like pollution and all, they would affect all of us. Yeah. So
but how does that affect you individually when you talk about long distance running? While we were getting ready in the green room, you gave a very interesting anecdote that when I'm running long distance, I'm breathing through my mouth, which means all these PM 2.5 figures that we hear of, which is over 400, 500, I'm soaking it all in. Is that the same experience?
Yes. So for an average adolescent teen, the average breaths per minute is 20 to 25. While exercising or doing active exercise, that doubles. So when you're breathing through your mouth, not through your nostrils, one primary layer of filtration, which is your hair inside the nostrils, gets blocked. So if essentially taking in more pollutants through your mouth while being active. Yeah.
It's tragic to hear these conditions, but of course, as the visuals will tell the picture from right behind you, that these are conditions we all have to face on a daily basis. Looking beyond sports, looking beyond these trials, how frustrating is it as a young citizen of our country? You, I'm sure, all four of you, I'm sure, from your formative years, from the very early years that you have a memory of, you would remember that this is what winter in Delhi looked like, which was not so much the case for older folks such as myself. So just as a young citizen, Nysa, how frustrating is it when you see politicians and the government squabbling, not able to come to a very decisive decision on how to deal with this?
Yes, it's really frustrating because you hear the stories from like your grandparents or your parents about how clean they used to be. They used to go out to play every day. But now it's like you're so restricted. Like I can't just get up and get out of my house and then go out and play anymore. Because there's a problem with pollution. My mom would be like, wear a mask or it's not safe. Like how can it not be safe to just go out of your house anymore? Like it poses a risk to your health, and I don't think that's a very nice condition to live in.
That's such a pertinent question to raise. How can it be safe not to go out in the first place? What about you, Shirin? When you look at these conditions here in Delhi, does it compel you? Do you have conversations within your family that, look, perhaps I'm in the formative years, I'm in just high school right now, perhaps it's not best to plan my future in Delhi? Is that a conversation that you have in your sitting room?
Yeah, definitely, because I feel like when you enter the month of November, you have this mindset that, oh, you know, I can't leave the house, which is really unfortunate. And even for like senior citizens in my family, like there are people out of station right now and they just can't come to Delhi to visit just because of the circumstances. So obviously when I'm thinking about future plans, it's definitely something that lingers in my mind. Like, do I really want to have a future in a place where I really can't go out? I can't do any sports, any physical activities beyond the month of, let's say, October, the early times of October.
Okay. Zoya, when you see these conditions here, of course, we hear of other countries and other cities elsewhere also struggling with similar conditions. When you have this conversation in school, what are the initiatives at a school level that they encourage students to do to help tackle these issues?
So actually, a lot of the air pollution, more than 50%, actually comes directly and indirectly from vehicles. So this looks like vehicular emissions and from road dust itself, where the vehicles are kicking up a lot of road dust, which is actually the biggest contributor to air pollution in Delhi specifically. And I think our school specifically has had this Better to Bus initiative where they've encouraged more and more students to participate and take the school bus to and from the school while they're trying to make, like, on their commutes to school. And I think that's been very beneficial. I think if every school and every public organization as well starts doing this, we start incentivizing using public transport more, as well as recycling, reusing, trying to minimize our waste and just trying to do things that are better for the environment as a whole, I think that's really beneficial.
Well, just to make a point, in fact, you guys, from what I understand, came in one car, the four of you together. So I think that's maybe a message that you're sending out to your colleagues and to your friends as well. Lukshya, coming to you again, I go back to the same point that this is something that is not, which is unknown. I think one line that really struck me in your petition, in all of your petitions that you filed before the Delhi High Court, is that this is known, this is predictable, and something that can be planned for. Is it frustrating for you as a young citizen that, look, I know it's coming, but clearly we're not doing enough about it?
Yeah, obviously it is. So every year we know it's going to strike. The acre is going to rise to severe or hazardous levels. And all of our competitions, as we mentioned, happen around this time. And it's not only football. We're all footballers, but competitions like hockey, tennis, basketball, etc., etc. Their zonal competitions or inter-zonal competitions are also happening in this month. So yeah.
Nysa, let me come back to you that when you're having these conversations, do you get, when you do travel and you get to go overseas,
Yes.
how would you draw a parallel between a city like Delhi, which is again very large, but at the same time has a large vehicular population, large number of people. But when you travel overseas, when you go to an equally large city, if you travel to something like a Barcelona or a London, how was your experience in terms of just simple air quality and what it feels like when you actually fly back and land here in Delhi?
Okay, one of the greatest points that I've seen is my sister studies in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam.
Okay.
And sometimes when we're just talking about air pollution, we happen to check on the weather app, what's the air pollution of Netherlands or Amsterdam today? And it shows 4 as moderate. And then we look at 300, 400, and that's severe, but it's still okay. Like, we're like, oh my God, this is like good. And over there at 4, she's like, it's moderate. So this is a huge difference. Like, how can you see a 4 and say moderate to that? But then you see a 400, 500 AQI in Delhi and you say it's safe for children to play. Like, we can host so many tournaments in this same time.
Very eloquently put there, Nysa. We're running out of time, so I'll come to all of our special panelists for one final thought. One message that you'd like to send to the government, to the administration when you're looking at a crisis situation like this. Shirin.
I would ask them to recalibrate the sporting calendar, keeping in mind the recurring phenomena of high AQI from the months of November to January.
Zoya?
I would ask them to do the same, and I'd also ask them to try and incentivize people having better waste segregation and having better modes of transport as well.
And Lukshya, one message that you would send out, something that reflects the collective feeling of the athletes. You were giving me a very interesting number that as we speak, as many as 25,000 students are going in for these trials. So one message that perhaps echoes the sentiment of a lot of young athletes who look to represent India or their respective states or schools going forward.
Because this is essentially the future of our nation, right, that we're talking about. So it would be obviously the best idea or a better way to schedule events later on, or just give our students or the future of India the best experience that they can get.
Right, guys, thank you so much for joining us and putting these thoughts so eloquently for the benefit of our viewers. That's the situation that we are in. In fact, many student athletes that we speak to, they narrate their experience, their parents narrate their experience when they tell us that when they go to the administrators, the message that they get is, "Aapko nahi khelna, to aap apne bacche ko leke ja sakte hain. You can take your kid back home if you guys don't want to play, if you don't want to play in this weather, in these conditions." That's the message. So that's the status of the situation. That's where things lie. That students, young adults, young minors, young citizens of our country feel the need to knock on the doors of the Delhi High Court, claiming their right to life, their right to play. But that's unfortunately all the time that we have in this first segment. We're diving into a very short break. We'll come back with, in fact, another key issue, another emotive issue, which is animal rights activists protesting across the country after the Supreme Court ordered the removal of stray dogs from public spaces. We discuss that on the other side.